guys? We out here. I'm Maylee, your Donut Princess, and you're listening to Short and Sweet, a Donut Princess podcast. If you guys are watching, please hit the subscribe button and the follow button. I'd love to keep in touch with you. And thanks for keeping in touch with me as I bring on these amazing, amazing guests where they get to be vulnerable, share their stories, share what they're up to, and provide a little bit of insight for you guys who are just starting out in your industries. For the first half of this year, I'm covering female authors for my podcast. These are just kick-ass women who are just up to amazing things. And so we have Franziska. Franziska is here today, and she is actually knows a certified hype woman. Mm-hmm. And I would love to just have her, the warmest welcomes for her. Welcome to my podcast studio. Yay! And thank you for coming out here today. And without further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where'd you grow up? And did you ever think that you would become an author?
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this space for everybody to kind of feel motivated and supported. I think that's so important. And a lot of times people don't have that. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm from Germany, born and raised.
Okay.
I grew up in a small farm town. We had the one McDonald's and 11 villages.
Wow.
And when I was going to grow up, I could be a baker, work on a farm, and there wasn't really even college or anything. Wasn't really an option for me.
Yeah.
But I would say that I wrote my first book when I was 6, on our old computer room, the desktop.
The
old one. But it got deleted after I finished it, which was sad. Aww. But it was fine because it got me to kind of go home and be creative and all of that stuff in ways that I never really knew how to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved to Michigan when I was 12, which was interesting.
Was that just a total shock because you were from such a small town? And
yeah, so that going back, I grew up in Germany, but my mom is from England, and so it was kind of that third culture kit thing where you're always that misfit, but in a good way, right? Because you can use that to your advantage and do everything. Moving from Germany to then Michigan, and I think learning about, you're in middle school, you're learning about stereotypes, you're learning about how people behave, how they move, where you're kind of fitting in. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case in Germany, but it definitely was that way in Michigan, and I think I lost my voice.
I see.
And I assimilated in a beautiful way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to learn English, I got to figure out the American culture and what made people tick versus what made people successful. And you can kind of climb up that ladder, which I think is in one way really supportive and great, in another way it's very scary and you lose a part of your identity with it. And I, for a long time, had, I think, a hard time expressing my feelings, expressing and honoring what I was thinking and doing and who I was, because I didn't know, am I German, am I English, am I American? And so part of writing and journaling, I think, has been really healing for me. And why I always kind of go back to that to kind of hone in and honor myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually just pushed it live.
That's incredible. And it's so cool that you, at the age of 6, you're already writing. You said something earlier about, not knowing if you're American or German or whatever you, what do you identify with? And I definitely resonate with that because my background is Chinese, Cambodian, Thai, and I was born here. And within that, there's just so much generational trauma, but there's also, growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood and people not understanding your cultures or customs, and you kind of either assimilate or you kind of just advocate for your culture. And it just kind of sounds like, you assimilate a little bit but then you kind of figured out your healing later on.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book, which you have here for me. Definitely please sign it for me. I would feel really, really special. But tell us a little bit about what you got the inspiration for when you first started writing it.
Yeah. So I think, part of life, I think it's really important to figure out who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a journey and a thing that we try to figure out every single day, because who I am today might be different than who I am next week, next year, and 6 years. And I think part of that is enjoying that process and enjoying kind of figuring out who I am every day.
Yeah.
And so this book, Men Are Trash, the end of him and beginning of you is a story, and it's basically a short book of poems. It did start that way, though. So about 3-4 years ago, I, as you can imagine, went through a breakup. And I've always had kind of difficult times with men and just with partners in general, just family trauma that you're trying to work through and figuring out, am I lovable? Do I belong? Can I receive love? Right? Thinking about that. which is fine. And I went through a breakup, and I was like, I was really angry, and I started writing about how women are powerful and better, and historically how we've always kind of taken over societies, and like we're the leaders. And it sat for a while, and it never really fit. Like, it was like, I had it, I was proud that I had a book draft, and I was like, look at me, like I'm so awesome. And I was like, but I didn't want to do anything with it, because it didn't feel positive, for one, but I think it just didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to put out. And then it evolved into something more about historically and like dating advice and all of that. And I was like, that's cool, like awesome. I kind of explored that. Didn't fit right. And then I realized this summer, I had realized that I had over 100 poems on my phone, like in my notes section. Let me write this down because I will forget.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of been a habit of mine. And I just sat down one weekend and I had realized that I had a whole book. And really all it took was for me to just transfer my notes section into my computer, and I printed everything out, and then I laid it in my room, and I was like, I have something here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, the book, the way that it's written it's very chronological in my life. So from when I grew up, when I first realized that what love is and what it's supposed to be, right? Valentine's Day, you're in third grade, everyone gets a Valentine, except my friend and I were like playing ball, and we're like, did you get one? She's like, no. And I'm like, I didn't either. And I didn't know it at the time, but it's something that I think stuck in my head, and I'm like, wow, like that's how young we are when we realize that like we're supposed to be loved by somebody, like
right. And like by like a gram, like a Valentine's gram, but like then there's this whole thing of like, what is your love language? Yeah.
And who am I? And do I love myself? And do I love my friends? Right. And then moving through my first kind of relationships and the heartbreak that it took there through cheating and lying and manipulation, and of course codependency and all of that, right? And part of it I think was, looking back on it, it was the most healing thing I've ever done. And I think it was the most like, wow, like, is this my life? Like, am I ready to admit that to myself? In ways that I journaled about it for years, but I never truly, I think, recognized it and recognized my feelings and really like figured out who I was and who I became out of that. And so part of it is laughing about it, right? Laughing at some of the stuff that people are doing, and some of the just freaking out about things when you were younger, you didn't know better. And then the other parts are like, okay, this is actually really heartbreaking, and like, let me just honor that and put it out there because maybe it'll help somebody. So you can read it and you can say, this is my story, because it's very personal and there's a lot of like personal things in there. But then also you can open it up at 2:00 in the morning and just be like, oh, this makes me feel good, or haha, that's so funny. Or just if you're looking for inspiration from somebody, right? And it's truly been the most liberating thing I've ever done. I joke when I say, but I mean it, like, when I launched this, I did not take my first breath until I launched it.
Oh my
like just the deepening and the like the feeling that I had, and just really being like, oh, I did this. Like, this is me, and I'm going to put me out there. And as somebody that's always been in the background, right? That's never, I'm a publicist, I work in marketing, like, I help other people create things and put that out there and get the recognition, but never for myself. It's just been the best thing, because I think I'm seen now, and but more importantly, I see myself.
Yeah. That is so powerful. That is really, really powerful. And what I've gathered, from interviewing a bunch of female authors is it's said in different ways, but it truly is like, it's like a gift of yourself to the world. And even if it's, simply a book, it's an art piece, it's an expression, it's recounting, a lot of these experiences that you've had, and it's creating this relatability where that when someone picks this up, they're going to feel some type of emotions. You're going to take them through some kind of journey, and there's something so special about that. When did you release the book?
Last October.
Okay.
October 26th. Yeah, so still super, super recent.
Yeah.
And I think I really took it seriously probably in June, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I went on a Facebook group, which Facebook groups, like, don't sleep on Facebook groups.
Facebook groups
still.
are great.
I don't care what anybody says. They have gotten me my most clients, friends, network that I've ever needed. And I said, hey, I have this book idea. What do I need? And I found my editor. I found my publisher. I found my designer. Just everybody that helped me create this. I found kind of my community. And then asking for help.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have a book. I have an idea. How am I going to make this come to life? And what am I not even thinking about? Because when it is your own thing, you miss so many things that somebody else has to kind of call out. So it's important to kind of build that trusted community. And then I was like, I'm going to do this ASAP. And then literally 3-4 months later, it was out in the world.
That is super inspiring. That's just, and it also goes to show, number one, how powerful your community can be, where you can reach out. And I think a big takeaway is like, I think as women, when you're like younger, and sometimes you'll always go in this like, I can do this myself, let me figure it out, which, you know, women will always figure it out. But then there's also this part of like asking for help and like just receiving it. You know, the universe will always deliver it if you're asking in the right places, or if you're really intentional with it. You know, you're like, I have an idea, don't know how I'm going to get there. And, you know, all these things start to show up for you. And it's great that it was so easy for you to find these essential key players who made it happen for you. Yeah. I can definitely relate because I actually have been working on a book for my mom. Oh my gosh. And so the book is actually finished now. The draft is done, the cover's done. We're just doing the inside cover part, and I'm hoping it's going to launch like this month, like end of this month. But like you said, like I was like, so actually it came as there was a book agent who found me, and she, you know, I signed these papers to like sign with them. And then she quitted her job, and nobody at her firm wanted to take me on as a client because she had quit for a reason. You know, she was an Asian American who wanted to tell my story, but because nobody wanted to take it on, I was like, okay, I'm either gonna go the traditional way, or you know what, let's self-publish. Yeah. And from there, you know, like you, I reached out to you know, I was featured in a book called Uplifted, and I was like, hey, can I pick your brain about a few things? She sent me, you know, the person who could edit it. She sent me, you know, who I should talk to, like the print person. Like, she was just such a great resource. So for those of you who are listening out there who want to start your book, or even want to start any type of project, if you have an idea and you have a safe like community to tell that to, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. And you never know who is so kind enough to introduce someone that they know that's really, really good. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm so glad that worked out for you.
And you. Can we just take a moment to celebrate you for a second? Because it's not easy, right? Like, things fall into place, but it's not easy to be told no. And it's not easy, like, in the moment, because it's so personal, too, to get a no, to get a redirect, when you don't really realize, like, the bigger plans that are kind of at play, and just kind of going with it and remaining flexible and all of that. Yes. So congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you. I know, it was like, it just became this whole like experience where I was like, and kind of like you, like finally deciding to get serious about it, and then just things started to fall into place. There has to be that point where you go, okay, I'm gonna sacrifice a little bit of time where I can put it all together, and once it's put together, it's like such a great feeling. So I can't wait to show you my book too once it's done.
I can't wait. But you know, you're so right, because I think, you know, when you create something, of course you want it to be the best thing in the world and perfect, right? But I think it becomes a piece of art, whether it's a book or a song or a painting or an NFT or anything. It has to be its thing, and you can always refine it later. And I think we miss out on so many chances because we're scared. We're scared of being independent, asking for help. We're scared of not being good enough. We're scared of not having the right community, or being told no and then not knowing where to go. And it's important that when you have an idea, you have it for a reason, right? And then looking at the different directions that you're being told, like, what's happening, like, where am I going, what does this mean to me, how is this shifting the way that I'm feeling about something, and then just going with it and making it happen. Like, I never thought that this book was, like, I literally was like, I'm gonna put it out, like, I'm gonna send it to my friends, who cares, you know, nobody's gonna buy it.
You're right.
And I still, like, I don't even have paid ads right now, but I did for a pretty long time. I still sell 5-10 plus copies a week.
Amazing.
Just organically. Just word of mouth. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, right? But it's like the way that it's been received has been tremendous. And even like, again, the feeling of people seeing me do something like that, and then being able to sort of inspire them to say like, oh, I wrote a book. How did you do that? Right? And then being able to kind of show them the ways, because everyone has their own process of doing it. But I think it's just having that moment of bravery. And just saying, you know what, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if I get a 1-star review, because you know what, I like it, and that's all that matters. And then once you step over that, like, what's your next project going to be? And it's going to be so much bigger. It's It's going to be so much better. It's going to be so much more you. And that's what makes it worth it.
Definitely. And it's always a learning experience. You're always soaking it all up like a sponge. And if you can just take that, baby steps. I always say it's little baby steps. You're not going to like get to the location like in one big step. You go like each day is just a little bit more. It's a little bit more like today I was working on my press release and like coming up with like, the themes like people can expect. So it's every day you're like chipping away at it.
Yeah.
And you brought up a lot of really great points of why people are stopped, right? Why they're scared, why they're afraid of no. I think a big thing for me was like, a big thing for me was like, oh, like there's tons of books out there already, but it's like, none of them is as unique as this piece of art.
Yeah, and it almost becomes like, I don't care that there's a lot of books out there. I love that there's a lot of books out there because we all share the same experiences, but we have different ways of reflecting them back.
Yeah.
And I think even if it's that one person that it could be 10 years from now that finds it at a thrift store.
Yeah.
That you impact. That's why I wrote this book.
Yes.
That's why I shared it, because you know what? Like me, I go into bookstores all the time. I like to kind of go to these different experiences and make it happen. But I was like, I don't know. I think we have these measures of success and thoughts of what success should be like and what you have to make happen, and you see all these fancy things on social media, and I love that because I love virtual reality. I love everything that we do in the way that we get to be artistic, but I just really encourage every person to just find it their own way.
Yeah.
And that's like finding your voice, finding your authenticity, finding out what that means to you is I think the recipe and the key to success.
Absolutely. And if you could touch upon a little bit of what the process was like for you of like, okay, you've got your first draft done. You've got an editor, a publisher, a designer. So what did that process look like until you got the book in your hands?
Yeah. So a lot of communicating with them of what my vision was and being open to their feedback and opinions, which is really important to me because when I first chatted with my editor, like I expected her to be like, this sucks. We do everything. And she didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so I had like more sessions where I was like, what do you mean it's good? Like, what do you mean? Like, tell me it's awful. Like, tell me I need to fix something, right? Because how can I have something that's good enough, right?
Right.
And so I think that probably took the biggest thing. But it was really...
Oh my God. Just sorry to interrupt, but like I had the same thoughts when my editor edited mine, because she kind of like just did like grammar and like punctuation and things, but she didn't like she barely asked like any questions of like this or that. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, did I get a different editor? But now that you're saying this to me, I'm like, okay, like an editor's job is to do just that. And that the body, the vision, the content, it's gold.
Yeah.
It's gold. And like, it takes going through the process to be like, oh wait, like this is valid.
Is this it?
Is this enough? This is enough. Okay, sorry, continue.
No, you're fine because the thing is, like, at the end of the day, it's your vision and it's what you want to make it. And so when you bring a team together, like, of course you want them to be experts, right? It's kind of like building your board of mentors, right? It's like, I am lacking, quote unquote, these things, and so I'm going to pick somebody in finances and somebody in, I don't know, a C-suite thing and maybe marketing or whatever, and they kind of build you up. Well, when you write a book and you have a creative project, like, okay, so you pick these people because I don't know how to publish, I don't know how to design.
Exactly.
Like, I have an idea of a Pinterest board, but that's it, right? And so kind of talking through the vision and what it means to me, and then aligning on the objectives and then staying with that was really important. Then the next step, which I think for me took me the longest, was really like once I had everything like written up, and I literally in my apartment I have photos where it's just hundreds of papers everywhere, like talking like, where do I want these things to go? Like, where do the chapters go? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? And just walking around, like my dog was like, what's happening? Where am I allowed to be?
Like, huh? What?
Yeah, and just really laying it out and then putting it into order, and then of course doing the editing and the designing and going through those revisions and what it means like. But I think going through it and then making it come to life was one thing. And I think for me probably a little bit easier because it is poems. It's my story. Like our conversations were around, some grammatical things, but the spelling is really intentional. So in this book, you'll find that sometimes there's like a to, which is T-O-O instead of T-O, but it's intentional because of what it means to me, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like talking about that, what it means to another person, like that interpretation was a lot of it was like therapeutic almost, those conversations. And then setting up Amazon, right? So I did everything via Amazon.
KDP.
Yeah, because what you can do is you can upload it for free, and they will print it. So of course, with the colors and everything like that, you don't have that much control, but it's easier. And I think you have more control over the paid ads and some other things, and so it makes the access a lot better and easier for you.
Can we touch upon KDP for you?
Yeah.
How easy was the process, and what did you not like about the process?
So I was really lucky because my publisher did a lot of the setup for me.
Nice.
And so she walked me through everything, so that made it a lot easier. I think that it's really intimidating at the beginning just to make sure that like formatting wise it's correct. So when you think about the papers and the way that you set it up, sometimes it can get rejected, which you just have to be really close with your designer just to make sure that that's all good.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like the finalizing of your bio, the keywords that you're using, who your competitors are, the way that you set it up in the back system, like doing a lot of that research first is really important. I think for me at least, just because it's like when you think about making yourself competitive and being found by somebody, like what would they be searching for and what are they doing?
Yes.
So think about those, like as you're writing, as you're thinking about why am I going to write this book and what do I have to say, like why? Even just writing, like I have like a word vomit document, right, that I'm like blah 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 blah, and I reference it still to this day all the time because I might miss something.
Of course. That's really smart.
Yeah, but you know what? Like my book is in Barnes and Noble. Like when I found out about that, I was like, what? And KDP, what they do is it goes to local bookstores as well. So you make your book accessible to other bookstores across the world that can then order them. Like I looked today on Google and I was like, wait, I'm in Australia? Like I'm in a bookstore? Like what is happening? You know, it's like a pinch me moment. So I think not doing it is a miss. Just putting it out there, you can always refine it later.
Yes, you can always have different versions or series, right?
You can always, if there's a spelling error or something, whatever, like you can always just re-upload it. Like it's fine, you know. Don't be so hard on yourself, but be found, right? Like make sure that what you're doing right now, you're allowing yourself to be found. Make it as easy as possible for yourself, which you can do with self-publishing. If you find a publisher, great. Self-publishing is just as great with having all the control.
Yes.
And then just get help where you can, because help is out there. You know, you don't know what you don't know, but again, learning it and like my paid ads, like that's how I kind of put it out there. And I was like, what's happening? What's working? What's not working? What works for me? What doesn't work? But that's how you can kind of get into different hands.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so did you just sign up for KDP Amazon, or did you go through like Ingram Spark as
I did
well?
that too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so Ingram Sparks, KDP, Amazon, I think that's everything for right now. There's a few other ones, I want to say it's like Booksy. There's a few specific platforms that I'll share with you after. Maybe you can just post them or whatever, which give you reviews.
Nice.
And what they do is you can put your book on there for free, and then readers all around the world can look at them and they can read them before it launches and give you reviews, which then put you ahead of the game, and then make sure that other people have it, because your reviews are super important.
Yes, that's a big part.
And more than your friends too. So fun fact, so just for everybody who's watching, if your friends are like, Amazon has this weird thing where if you have friends that go on Amazon that will comment and give you feedback and Amazon knows about it, they'll remove that review completely.
Makes sense.
So having it from somebody different, having it from like a stranger or maybe a group that's like, you could go, for me it's romantics or poetry, like so I go into those groups because people are interested in that kind of book. It's going to be a lot easier. But yeah, reviews help me a lot.
Yeah, that's a great tactic and great tips, especially if you're starting out. And I think I'm going to actually go that exact route. I'm going to go through KDP and Ingram Spark. My question is, since I want my launch date to be May 1st, I should probably do this like now, right? Like
you can make the changes up until the day of.
Okay. Oh, great.
It's just, yeah. I mean, I think getting it started is helpful so you know what to do. But honestly, like I made changes probably like the last one I made was like 2 days before I launched officially. And then I actually launched my virtual, like my ebook first, and then I did the printed version later.
Very cool. Yeah. Oh, I love that you just shared about the process and like little tips and things, because you wouldn't really know this if you were just starting off, you know?
Because you're like, oh, I'm just going to do it, it's fine. And you can go to a local bookstore and you can give them your copy and they're going to help you and they're going to print 200, but then you have to be that distribution center, right? So there's pros to it and then there's cons to it, right? But I think they make it a lot easier for you, and I think they just make it a lot more accessible, and then once you get started, just refine it, and then it gets so much better, and you get your page out there if people can find it, and it's just,
Tell us about the amazing book launch that Courtney, who connected us,
Yes.
planned for you.
So launching my book didn't feel real until the book launch, but I was like, I'm going to celebrate myself, and I'm going to celebrate this momentous moment, not just for myself, but just to show other people and my mentors and my friends and my colleagues, like, what they could do in their life. And so to make it official, Courtney, I messaged her and I was like, can you help me? She's like, of course. And we went through thousands of different ideas. She'll sell to this day. I was like, hey, I changed my mind again. Can we do this instead? And she's so lovely and so amazing. And it was in Newport Beach in the most gorgeous house I've ever seen, and just in the backyard of the pool, and it was very like bohemian but like classic and just very me.
Love it.
And I had wonderful friends and mentors there. We had lots of really great food, and I did a little bit of a reading, which was so embarrassing but so awesome.
Yeah.
And it literally like an hour before the launch, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm an introvert. Like, I'm an introvert. Like, I love people, but I hate people.
Yeah.
What am I? Like, who do I think I am?
You're like, I'm drained at this point.
Like, it hasn't even begun. Like, I'm still in my sweatpants. Like, I just got my makeup done. Like, do I have to give a speech? Like,
Yeah.
we planned the whole thing, and like, I didn't even have a book table. Like, I forgot to have like a book signing table.
Yeah.
And so I literally like signed books on the floor, which was like hilarious.
It's fine, right?
You know, like, you just figure it out.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, like, we have to have like cushions, and people have to sit and like eat food. You know, she's like, where's your book table?
You're like,
what do you mean?
oh.
You know, but it made it official, and I think it was really important to me. And to this day, I think one of the most beautiful and mesmerizing days of my life, just because I was like, I did this thing, I have this creative project, I'm doing this party, now it's here.
Yeah, now
You
it's
know?
official.
Yeah, but Courtney's a lifesaver and just literally such a voice of reason, and without her I couldn't have done anything, so I just, big shout out.
And so what's next for you after this book? Is there a sequel?
No sequel yet.
Okay.
I'm writing a book right now on friendships and relationships.
Aww,
It's
okay.
called For Never Friends.
Love it.
But in the best of ways. And that, I think part of that is like moving from country to country and having pen pals, right? Like from your kindergarten. And we talked about your house, of course, that you've been in for so long. And being a part of that and finding yourself. So that's really, really wonderful. I launched a blog, Everybody Hates LA. So make sure you follow that if you're interested.
Definitely follow it.
It's really fun just to kind of talk about LA and the city that made me and that I've always dreamt of. And
that's right, because I was stalking your Instagram and you're at a lot of iconic LA places, and I was like, her and I are gonna get along. I was born and raised in LA too, and there's like no better city.
I don't know why, I've always been obsessed with LA since I was a kid. Like, I used to watch Disney's Recess and like all these like American shows, and I was like, I told everyone like I'm moving to Hollywood, and they're like, okay, that's funny, like, haha, like, you know, we're in Germany, like, what are you gonna do? And it was just like my mom remarried, and I was like, okay, we're moving to Hollywood, and they're like, haha, like nobody from Michigan goes anywhere.
Right.
And I moved here 4 years ago, and it's literally a dream come true. And it's more than just what you think it is, and like, you know, you come here like glitz and glamour and influencers and whatever fancy, but it's more than that. It's the people that grow up here that make it, like in the Angel Stadium, or when you drive on the 405, like, I know people hate it, but like, I'm like, woo, let's make it happen.
Yeah, you're like, you know, this is where everybody's at.
I know, but it's just, it's that fun way of like allowing yourself to live, and it's the most amazing thing.
Did you also, you mentioned that you do like marketing and like public relations. So you were doing that concurrently while you're writing the book, right?
Yeah.
And so did you, like, how are your sales for your books been? Like you said, like you do like 5 to 10 a week. Like, could you do you ever imagine that maybe this could be your full-time thing?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have always had like 8+ jobs. I've always had tons of clients.
Yes.
It's really hard for me to prioritize myself over my clients, right? Because of course they're the most important thing.
Of course.
In writing this book, I think part of it is prioritization.
Yes.
Right? And I don't agree when people say like, if you want something, like, you're going to prioritize it over everything else, because you have to make money, you have to pay rent, you have to pay for food. Like, there's real life stuff that's happening, and then of course there's your dreams, right? But there is an element where you have to put other things on hold and say, this is what I'm focusing on today.
I love that.
And making a plan. And even if it's an hour, like for me it was waking up 30 minutes before I usually did and writing for 30 minutes.
That's a great simple way to
editing.
Work on your dreams. Yeah.
And making progress. And like every week I had like a milestone of like, okay, this week I'm going to do Amazon. This week I'm going to do KDP. This week is where I can review whatever. And like carving out intentional space for that to happen. Was it hard with a full-time job? Absolutely. Was it hard? But in one way it was because you're living like a double life, right? I have this full-time job that I love, the people that I love, and these clients that I love, and I also have this dream of making my dreams come true. So can I do it full-time? Yes, probably. I'm not quite ready because I feel like I still have a little bit of learning to do for my team and my clients.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of amazing things. Like I would love to get started on TikTok now once I'm more comfortable with video content.
Yeah.
Just, that's like my next step.
Okay.
And of course, like picking up like paid advertising again, which of course, like putting money behind it, increasing the reach is really important, as long as you're targeted with it.
Right.
You have to make sure you're focused on it. That just doesn't go to the wayside, right? Would I love to be an author? Yes. I don't know if
you are an author.
I am an author.
Like full-time author.
I am, and I write all the time, but I think it's more about like, how do I envision my life? Like, what would I do? You know what I'm saying? And so I think it'll always be a part of my life, and I'll always create something. But we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I'm open to any miracle that might come my way and the way that it might shape my life.
You've dropped so many gems during this podcast. I don't even know if I want to ask you this, but I will. So at the end of my podcast, I asked them to share like 5 golden nuggets that someone that is going through what you're going through might not know. You've said a lot of amazing little gems along the way. So is there anything else that you want to share to somebody who is like just starting out as an author, or like maybe feels really defeated at one point, and then like what was that thing that kind of like pushed you over and was like, I'm gonna keep going?
Yeah. Just, it sounds simple and cliche, but just believe in yourself. You are worthy. You are deserving of everything in life and more, and you're abundant, and you're creative, and you are a creator. So own that.
Yeah.
And just do it. And don't be scared, because whenever you're scared of something, it's that one thing that you have to do. And it's usually the thing that you should do first.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of that, even if it's a failure, quote unquote, it's a learning moment.
It is.
And it makes you stronger, and it makes you act better and the next time something like that comes up. But I think just do it and own the fear and own yourself, and you have an amazing community in front of you and around you that is there to help you, even if it is a stranger, even if it is somebody that you're DMing on Instagram. Who cares, right? Use them, and use every no as a redirection, because when things are the hardest, that's when the most breakthroughs happen, and there's always hope. Yeah.
You are just such an inspiration to me, and you've shared so many amazing gems, like I said before, and I hope that if whoever's watching out there, please check out your book. Men are trash. And I can't wait to read it. And I think the biggest thing that I want to take away from the book is like it's healing.
Yeah.
People heal in all sorts of ways. And one way is finding that space within a book or within a piece of art where it speaks to you. And I can't wait to get into this because everybody goes through breakups. Everybody goes through hard times. And this is just another resource of picking yourself right back up.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
On Instagram, Franziska Pugh, YouTube, TikTok, all of those places. And of course on Amazon and all of those, you can Google Men Are Trash and you'll find it hopefully at the top.
And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for joining us and listening in. I hope you learned something from this podcast. And until next time, holla at your girl.